So sleep is one of the most important factors for your health and overall well-being. And it's sad to see that most people are chronically sleep deprived. So you need sleep to actually function well. It's good for your physical health, for building muscle, for performance, for your mental well-being, for everything. So today I will go over 12 points to better your sleep, to fix your sleep. And we'll dive right in. Number 1 is go to bed and wake up at roughly the same time every day. It sounds very simple, but most people don't do it because they allow distractions and disruptions in their sleep schedule. So they will every day they will go to bed at a different time because someone texted them or they needed to do something. But you should aim to go to bed and wake up at roughly the same time every day, even on weekends. Like, it's okay to sometime when you really need to actually go to bed a little later and stuff, but you need to try to fix that sleep schedule as soon as possible and go to bed and wake up at roughly the same time every day is like the sort of a baseline. Because that is like how you set your like this sort of sleep clock for your body to say that, okay, this is the time I go to bed and this is the time I wake up, and that will make your body sleepy at that time and like wake up at that time every day. The second tip is you can actually use screens before going to bedtime. Most people say like don't use screens like 1 or 2 hours before going to bed. You can, but there are some rules. First rule is like 1 hour, 2 hours before bed, put on the blue light filter on your phone. So that filters the blue light coming in, and put your phone like on low brightness, for example. So you won't have a lot of like artificial light coming into your eyes, because that is actually bad for sleep. And do not watch or consume anything that is stimulating for your brain, because that will make your brain like spike up an activity right before you go to bed, and that is absolutely not what you want, because you want your brain to shut it down before you go to bed. So no like Instagram or social media or anything that will stimulate you before going to bed. Anything apart from that, you can actually use screens. Tip number 3 is make sure your body and mind are fatigued. So do things in the day that actually make your mind and body tired. So you actually deserve going to bed. Because when I acted like a bitch throughout the day and laid around on my bed all day long, I had much more trouble falling asleep than when I sported like 3 hours and then worked 5 hours, and like I did all these things and stuff, and I was really tired and I would fall asleep a lot easier. The 4th tip is one I experience a lot of success with, and may sound a bit weird, but it is when you lay in bed and you will try to fall asleep, it's about the things you think about. And what helped me fall asleep a lot quicker is to think about fantasy. So about things that are not actually like happening in your day-to-day life, because that will also stimulate your brain a lot and you won't fall asleep. But when you think about fantasy, and what helped me really was like reading before bed, and like reading fiction before going to bed, because then I could think about like the fiction, that book, and imagining like I was in that book or something, and thinking about that put me asleep like in 10 minutes. It's really amazing how fast I fall asleep when I think about fantasy stuff. So that's tip 4. Tip 5 is to plan out your next day. So when you're going to bed, plan out your next day. I do this in Google Calendar. And what this helps me with is when I plan out my entire next day, I don't have to think about it anymore. So that takes away like things to think about, which will make me stay awake at night. So before I did this, I was in bed like thinking, oh shit, I need to do this tomorrow, I need to do this, and when I'm going to do this. But when you plan that out, when you like get your Google Calendar and like plan out your whole day, you don't have to think about that anymore because you already planned it. So that takes a lot of brain space away. Then tip number 6 is to increase your time in bed. It may sound really simple, but most people won't do this because they think they spend enough time in bed. Because let me ask you a simple question. You want to sleep for 8 hours and your alarm clock goes off at 7 a.m. How late do you go to bed? Most people will say 11 p.m. because there's an 8-hour block between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. That's actually wrong because it takes time to fall asleep and your sleep efficiency will make it more so you will sleep 6.5 hours, maybe 7 hours. So what you actually want to do is to spend 9.5, maybe 10 hours in bed to actually get like 8 to 9 hours of sleep. So when you want to wake up at 7 a.m., instead of going to bed at 11 p.m., go to bed at 9:30 or 10 p.m. Then tip number 7 is your room temperature. And room temperature between like 16 and 18 degrees, I think, is the best temperature to fall asleep in. And most people have their rooms too warm. So you want to cool down your room. And people they like tips to cool down your rooms, maybe get the air conditioning or a fan, or put your window open or stuff. It's actually quite hard to decrease your room temperature, but if you can find a solution to decrease your room temperature, I would suggest it because it will make falling asleep easier. Then tip number 8, make your room as dark as possible. And I tried to make my room as dark as possible throughout the years because I really liked falling asleep like in complete darkness. So I make sure there are no lights, even like a little tiny bit of light. I completely cut out all lights in my room, and I have like blackout curtains, so it's completely dark when I sleep. But if you're not able to like make it completely dark in your room, which you really would like to, you can always think about buying like an eye mask for being like completely dark. Then tip number 9 is when you wake up, go outside as soon as possible and get some sunlight in your eyes, because that will like set your circadian rhythm, which will make you fall asleep like in the evening better, because that signals to your brain like, oh, it's I'm awake now, I get sunlight in my eyes, it's daylight, so in about like 12 hours I will start to feel sleepy, because then it's like the biological clock signals to you that you need to go to sleep. And the same is when it's sunset, you also want to be outside, because that also signals your biological clock and stuff that it's time to go to sleep soon. And when you actually watch the sunset, it's best to avoid like bright lights directly after that, because that will like give contradicting signs like, oh, it's the sunset, but I also get like a lot of light in now, and it will confuse the biological clock. So sunlight directly in the morning and be outside with sunset. Tip number 10 is to tape your mouth with like some tape or something when you go to sleep, because that will make you in the night breathe through your nose. And that will make your sleep quality and the deep sleep you're getting way, way better. And you'll feel way, way rested with less sleep. So tape your mouth shut. And it's also very, very good for your health to breathe through your nose. So there's a lot of health benefits and it will improve your sleep. So tape your mouth shut and breathe through your nose. And the tape may come off at night. But I experience like the best nights of rest, like I feel when I'm most rested when I wake up, is when the tape stayed on my mouth the whole night. So that is something you really, really should include, taping your mouth. So tip number 11 is to drink caffeine at the right time of the day. And it depends on like the person you are and how well you react to caffeine, how much this affects you. But I would suggest not taking caffeine late in the day, because it will affect how well you fall asleep and how good of a sleep you will get. So like don't drink it after 3-4 p.m. I don't drink caffeine anymore because it's not worth the potential risk of getting bad sleep, because it will like block your receptors for getting like the sleepy the molecules that make you sleepy. So I also don't drink it actually in the first 1.5 hours of the day, because it will block the breakdown of those molecules you will still have in you after waking up. And then when the caffeine wears down, the breakdown will go on again and you will get caffeine crash and you will feel really sleepy. So if you will wait like 1.5 hours after waking up with taking caffeine, you will actually not get a caffeine crash. So I will not take caffeine 1.5 hour after waking up, and not after like 3-4 p.m. So you may want to experiment with that yourself, see how well you react to caffeine and stuff. But that is something you can keep in mind. And the last tip I have is to calm down your heart rate before going to bed. Because when you go to sleep, your heart rate will go down and go down and go down. And you will also fall asleep faster when your heart rate is already slower. So things you can do to like lower your heart rate is like some breathing exercises or meditation or something to really slow down that heartbeat. These are like the 12 tips that really help me. I hope they will also help you. See you next time.